One, two, three. All right. Hey, folks. The biggest lie that there is about Next.js is that it's suited for every application. And we're going to talk about that a bit more, explain what I mean by that today in our episode. We've got some news. We're going to have a lively discussion, if you want to call it that, or perhaps it's almost like a shitpost, right? We might be doing some talking about this platform in a way that we don't often do. Let me switch over to, no, that's not the view I want. Let's see. Nope, that's not the view either. Hang on, let's go here. And nope, this is the view I want. Hang on a second. As you can see, we're still kind of trying to get this straightened out, figured out this whole UI, this interface. But before that, I just want to bring something up here. Let's get back to this. Now we're going to go back to the slides again. All right, so bear with me for a second here while I move things around. And this is our thumbnail. You've seen it. And I just want to bring up the next thing, which is a couple of weeks ago, we mentioned that we are inaugurating a new group of Meteor community members, Meteor community ambassadors. And we hinted that you'll be hearing something about it very shortly. This week, a letter went out to these members of the community. These 6 members of the community received a notice that they have been inducted as the 2024 Meteor community ambassadors, MeteorJS community ambassadors. So I just want to lay it out there. Heard back from about 4 of them. 2 of them, I'm not sure if they've checked their mail or if it's gone to spam, but we're giving you a heads up right now that you have been notified. There is some request, and we're going to have an entire episode next week that's really kind of devoted to the idea of celebrating these accomplishments. So let me swap myself back out again here and take that. Let me just remove that for a second because it really is a little bit disconcerting. So Jan normally does this. I promised today that I would do the management of the screen because he's going to be speaking a lot. And I just wanted to get that out there that these 6 people in the community have achieved this wonderful accomplishment, and we are going to celebrate it next week. So with that, let me just point out that this is episode number 72. We've done this 72 times now. We've actually done a few more than that. Of this in MeteorJS, a weekly newscast of the MeteorJS Dispatches podcast. My name is Alim Gafar, streaming to you live from New York City. With me today is...
Hello, everybody. My name is Dvorak. I'm coming to you live from Prague, Czechia.
Excellent. And let me just check one more thing. No, I think with this, we're going straight into the news. So let me add back the visuals, and I'm going to pass it on now to Jan. Storyteller.
Yes. So I think, Alan, you need to go one back slide, just a little bit.
One back. Okay. Give me 1 second here. Oh, yeah, that's right. I fat fingered.
Yes. So as promised, the last week there was on Tuesday a security release of Node.js. For us in Meteor, concerning was the version 22.13.1 release of Node.js. That's where the Meteor 3 is on right now. It fixes 2, I would say, potential issues for Meteor, fixing a bug in a Windows path traversal and updating a dependency to fix HTTP behavior in fetch. You can read more about it on the official website of Node or the official release note. For us, what's important is that Meteor 3.1.2 is going to have this node release. I've asked the team in there. It's not going to be any expedition super fast, but they've also be added into it some other bug fixes and other things that will come in. And with that, another security news from you, Alim. What do we have?
Yeah. So let me swap back over here again. And what we've got here is just a reminder that you probably should make sure that when you're installing the packages that you're doing, you watch your spelling. In the case of installing and making sure that you've got the right thing, spelling can be very important, because if you have typos, you might lose quite a bit more than you think you're going to gain by including these libraries. I'll explain what's going on. There is this issue of cyber squatting, or I'm sorry, typo squatting is what they call it, right? When you make an error in your spelling of something. Now, this is something that goes back to the days of, if you remember, domain names, where if you had a complex domain name, or even something like whitehouse.gov, right? If you typed whitehouse.com, it used to take you to a porn site. So people have taken the same ideas and listen, if you are going to type something like underscore.js and you forget the E, or you added an E, or you didn't spell it correctly in some way, there are malicious actors out there now creating NPM packages, putting them in. And when you, and this article talks about it, when you install it, you basically are installing malware. So the two packages that they talk about in this article are Chalk and Chokidar. And as you can see, the highlighted section over here says malicious NPM packages, typo squatting, Chalk and Chokidar targeting Node.js developers. So keep that in mind. Meteor, we bring it up because Meteor uses, and the big take home from this is double check your spelling when you are doing your includes. Okay, you want to make sure that the sources that you use and the spelling of sources are what you want. Okay, and so it's just keep your eyes open. And with that, let's talk about different types of packages and package replacements. There is this other thing that's been up in the news lately. Jan, what do you find?
So I'm not sure if anybody has heard about HDMX. It's, I would say, a package that's gaining quite a bit of popularity. And they had recently a blog post about their future and how they see the future of the package and everything. And it's very interesting. I think definitely something to think about, especially since I believe we've kind of in the mature phase of the ecosystem. And specifically HTMX, they want to be have the same characteristic of jQuery and be ambiguous everywhere. Sadly, the other Jan is not here with us today. Otherwise, I think we'll have a lively discussion about this in Blaze. So we'll have to skip that for next time. But they have what they have there, which I think is interesting, is they have promised to do quarterly releases, and they say no new features as a feature.
What does that mean?
So they don't want to introduce any, you could say, of course, any breaking APIs or really add too much new stuff at all. So it's we have achieved you could say feature completion, and we'll keep on maintaining this, maybe adding new stuff, but the API as you know it is not going to change, which especially now with history of Meteor 3 and other, where we have a lot of breaking changes, constantly something changing. That can appeal to quite a few people, I would say.
So it sounds like they're sort of saying, listen, let's make sure that only the key features that are needed here are in here, and everything else that's superfluous or are nice to haves may not belong. I noticed they make this bold claim, and I see it in the post here, that HTMX is the new jQuery. Let me read what they've got written down here. They say, we want to emulate the technical characteristics of jQuery that make it such a low-cost, high-value addition to the toolkits of web developers. Alex, who is one of the folks and one of the co-authors here, discussed building 100-year web service. And we want HTMX to be a useful tool for exactly that use case. Websites that are built with jQuery stay online for a very long time, and websites built with HTMX should be capable of the same or better. It's a bold statement to make, when it says that it wants to be the next jQuery. I read that and it called to mind a separate article that I had taken a look at this week, which talked about the 5 JavaScript libraries you should say goodbye to in 2025. And one of them, besides Lodash and Moment, is jQuery. So when I initially heard about this, I was like, you want to be the next jQuery, when basically the article here has said, well, jQuery is not necessary anymore because the features and the capabilities that we relied on in jQuery are now built into the language, so it's superfluous. So I was a little confused about it until I actually read this, but
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, another say take could be on this. I always, when I think about jQuery, I think to my actually first introduction to JavaScript course at university, where the professor, to kind of weed out people who weren't serious about the course or just thought it would be easy course, he gave us an assignment to do a lot of DOM manipulation on an HTML document, and he said expressly forbid us to use jQuery. It was a test if we can manage it without jQuery, and this was the time before really a lot of the goodies that were back then in jQuery became part of the API. So it was we didn't have any like query selectors, and it was sometimes very difficult to select specific elements, especially if you didn't have ID. So that was quite a challenge. But eventually, over the years, given how jQuery was pretty much then used everywhere, it has become part of the API. So the need, as is in this article mentioned, is no longer jQuery, it's only there because you already have that kind of as part of the API. So if this is something that's happened with HTMX as well, that would definitely be an interesting development. But I think given where HTMX is kind of looking for, that might not be the case, and there will still be, I would say, in the background, you could say, new methods to kind of work with, and approaches to do what it does better. But the commitment here seems to be not to change the API and to keep things in. So,
well, this is really interesting to me because this seems to be the inevitable way it works in software. If you think back on the early days of Microsoft, when Microsoft basically built the operating system, had a couple of software suites out there, but really wasn't in the software game, they had a very healthy, independent software vendor ecosystem. And once in a while, one of those vendors would notice there was something missing and would build an application, and people would turn to it and use it. And eventually what happened is, probably after, huge amounts of downloads, large install base, noticing that people are constantly going back to it again, version after version, Microsoft would do something which we always thought was kind of nasty, which is it would say, oh, that capability that you're looking for, we're not going to put in, we're going to call it Microsoft Access. You need a lightweight database. We'll give you one called Microsoft Access. And now that entire piece of the market goes away, right? But what they're doing is they're enriching the ecosystem that they're giving you. And, adding, I think the folks looking at the browser capabilities and saying, hey, when people want to iterate through the DOM, they need to use jQuery. Let's add this now to the web APIs. I think is just the way things are going to look, right? So anytime there are going to be popular libraries out there that people are going to see are being used again and again and again, the folks that are downstream from it, that are providing the basic service, are probably going to say, you know what, it probably makes a lot of sense for us to include that in that base service so that you don't have to use some external feature in order to accomplish this particular thing that we didn't think about the first time that would be important to you. And I wouldn't be surprised if that also happens, as it happened with jQuery, that it would happen also with HTMX. But these are early days. It's going to be fun to see how this plays out. So, anyway, that was just sort of like a longitudinal thought about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Hey, I think one of the things people should do is, if they're really having fun with this, give the episode a like. It'll get more notice, and it'll allow us to keep on. It'll encourage us to keep on doing this. Believe me, there are times where we wonder whether or not what we're doing here is even worth it. So, and I just noticed I've been chatting recently. Jan just pointed this out to me. I've been sending out notices to who I think is everybody in the chat who's online right now. I've been sending my notices to the private chat, and I've been wondering why I'm getting no responses whatsoever. So that sucks. So anyway, hey out there. Okay. And with that, let's move on to the next story. We're looking at Express.
Yes, it's been a little bit back on 9th of January. There is a new chapter for Express.js, kind of a blog post discussing the times of 2024, and for us, most importantly, their ambitions into 2025. If you don't know, Meteor is built on top of Node and Express. So what happens in Node and Express is has very much impact on us as well in Meteor, and in many ways Express even more so, especially with Meteor 3. We actually migrated from Connect, which was supposed to kind of be the lightweight version of Express, but kind of really didn't make it. We went to Express, and Express kind of seemed to be dying over the past few years. Not much development, I think, but it has changed really last year. There's been a lot of updates, major version releases, all that stuff. And what are they looking to do in 2025? They're looking for package reorganization, so namespacing packages and all that stuff. So that's going to be a bit of an annoyance, but mostly unless you are using Express directly in your applications, or if you are developing in the core on that. They are also looking to phase out legacy approaches, which can have an interesting impact on Meteor, because given the age of Meteor, I'm sure we definitely use some legacy approaches, as Express people would call it. So we'll have to kind of look more into that. Everybody likes performance improvements, so they are looking into that as well. So similar like with Meteor, they have now establishing benchmarks and looking to identify the bottlenecks and improve on that. I think that also is a bit, could say, encourage, given that there's a lot of other new servers like Express that are touting their performance over Express. So Express will be looking to kind of get back its mojo and improve its speed. If you remember, we've discussed it or mentioned it a few times that new service like Hono looks super fast and interesting. The same thing with Bun, which we'll talk more about next week. And finally, they also want to improve security, specifically focusing at least at the beginning on the OSFF scorecard, which really covers a lot of their organization approaches, policies, and all the other things. I have started one, or Meteor has started one for itself as well. So I would also highly encourage Meteor to finish that, because that's kind of becoming the industry standard for judging packages when it comes to security. So
is this scorecard something that Meteor developers can use?
So the scorecard itself, kind of looking into it, everything, it covers a lot of topics, and I would say it's really more for really big corporate companies to look into. But overall, I think there are now tools that kind of distill what's in them, and there's of course at the end there's a score, so everybody can use that if the project has filled it out truthfully. then it's going to give you a bit of an insight into the security and security practices of a given project. So definitely one big thing to look into, and it's a relatively new project, speaking just a few years old. So it still has a bit way to go, but Linux Foundation and other big players are behind it, and so far I think I would say it's going to becoming an industry standard.
So I see like everything you've explained here as being useful to the people that are working on the Meteor platform itself, but I don't really see the takeaway for the people that are using it, like the developers. I think the point that you're trying to make here, if I can frame it this way, is that Meteor uses Express on the server side, right, to do server-side routing, and any of these changes may affect how you route your APIs. Is that correct?
Yes. If you have a simple application, you usually don't even think about it. But anytime when you have webhooks, for example, if you're receiving back information from Stripe, you are using or web app application, or the web app package itself is pretty much Stripe with a lot of kind of integration into the Meteor itself. So anytime you use that, it's going to have impact. Of course, any performance improvements on Express side are also going to be a positive performance improvement on Meteor side as well. So for example, if they get faster response time, all that stuff, Meteor will get faster response times as well.
Sure. But for the people that manage their own applications, the only ones that really care about this are not folks that are worried about the client-side rendering, but I'm not client-side rendering, but client-side routing. But if you're doing any kind of routing on the server side, you need to be aware of this. Okay.
Yeah.
Very
cool.
Specifically
server-side rendering, that's something where you're going to get quite deep into this as well.
Exactly. All right. And I think there's some good news that you want to share with us too, right? That others, if they really want to kind of engage with others on talking about specific Meteor topics, what's happening next? What are we talking about?
So I think, Impact, which if you remember is a conference that I have been hosting for, 2021, 2022, and I'm now missing my notes, damn it, here. So we are running 3 years.
2019.
No, 2020.
Right? Or
no, 2019. Oh, no, that was where I came to Japan. So when I came back from Japan, so it was 2020, 2021, and 2022. It was a 2-day conference online, back then hosted on the Pathable platform, thanks to their generous sponsorship. But then once Pathable closed, I couldn't find any good replacement that would make it as simple, and I was swamped with other stuff, so I didn't have time to proceed. But it's back now this fall. Still a lot of things in the air. This fall we'll have the conference. Literary Universe will be providing as the means to do that online. And we'll be doing all the announcements like call for papers, sponsors, signups, all that stuff in the coming months. Expect once we have a date and a few other things that I need to finish up, then that you will be receiving weekly or bi-weekly updates on what's going on. That also said, on the forums, Alim will just have to make the announcements. It's gonna sum things up. If you have any suggestions, recommendations, or desires, please respond there or send me an email, and I'll be happy to incorporate it into our planning.
Yeah, I think if we just keep everything on the forum post for now while you get the rest of the infrastructure in place, I think it's a good way to keep the conversation organized. And also, sharing thoughts with everybody else and letting them contribute, I think is a great way to do this. So excellent. I'm looking forward to it. We'll see who wants to speak. We usually get a good set of speakers out of this. Quite often we get quite a few people from the Meteor core team itself, Meteor software. that come and share their information. I think we also have a lot of those, the early talks that have been recorded that we have are up on the Meteor software YouTube channel, aren't they?
Yes, they are on the Meteor software YouTube channel, so all the previous years are all there. That was one thing that I made sure just before Path Hubble shut down, that all of them are, because all of them were recorded, and so all of them were put there. And this is going to be the case this year as well. But obviously, there's going to be a delay between the conference and when the recordings are going to be put up.
So if you want to really get a sense of it, just join the conference. It's a really good time. And if you want to get a sense of what the content's going to be like, you can go back to the Meteor software YouTube channel and watch those earlier episodes. It might give you some ideas about what you might want to talk about in 2025. There might be a topic there that we touched upon or we discussed that was relevant to 2.x series, that now that we're in the 3 series, there are new things to think about and ponder and discuss. And so there are opportunities for you to find topics to speak on. If you need any help figuring out topics, you can also reach out by DM right on the forums to either one of us, and we can help you sort out some ideas and get you through. It's one of the things I've done a lot over the years at the Meteor New York meetup and at Meteor Camp, and also helping out in other things. But Jan, I think this is also something that you've done too, with people that have come to Impact and other conferences that you've run.
Yes. For that, like ideas and panels, I've started with the anime conventions, both in Europe and in America. So I have, pretty much since I was, I think, 18, I have been involved in organizing and talking at these conventions. So it's kind of bad for me because now I cannot really go to a conference without either being a speaker or in some sort of official capacity helping the conference, because it just makes me feel extremely uncomfortable that I'm not doing anything specifically.
Something useful. Right.
Exactly. So that it's a bit of a problem for me. So, but that's kind of to give you a quick experience. So anime conventions, I even had my own writing conventions, which I hope to bring back in the future as well. And of course, Meteor Impact on the technical side.
So let's move on to the rest of the news specific to Meteor, because we broached one topic, which is Impact Conference. But I think there are 3 other stories here that you think are really meaningful and relevant to devs today, correct?
Yes.
Okay, let's go with them. Let me move on.
Yeah, I think I'll let you skip the transition slide, but that's fine. Okay,
that's
so
it's right there. I put it back. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so first story. It's a bit of a meme story. I say, Meteor is so fast, much wins, and this kind of goes to quite a bit old art or post by Radoslav, and it's quite almost I think a year back, and he had issues with upgrading to Meteor 2.8.2 from 2.73 because. When they did that, all of their CI started failing, and it was just a total disaster because of speed issues. And now he finally has looked, even more again into that, and figure out that the issue wasn't that Meteor suddenly became slower, but because Meteor became faster and their CI was not, let's say, able to handle it. So there was, the method fired, and before the CI could recognize that it has, because there was, it has like a loader that it waited for, but the loader really was just, showed and gone so fast that it thought it has not fired, so it started firing over and over again. So that which of course flooded the server and made everything super slow. So the solution was then to make sure that to use the wait time and make sure that the event was caught. Looks like there he is, Alim, and
Yeah.
so
The wait time issue. Hang on, I'll put my camera on too. I'm not feeling pretty today, so I just figured I'd just turn it off. But the wait time issue, I think, was kind of the funny thing, right? Because you said that when you went through this, and there's more to this, it's that they had to slow the wait time down from a second to a millisecond, which is like 1,000 times slower in order to catch the event when it fired, right? Or
Yep.
or you know, when it fired, right?
Yep.
Because it was just so fast that it was like, oh, it never happened. So, but
So
1,000, wow, that's
yeah. Still though, the speed, I think the metrics was just like a few percentage improvements overall. But again, even these small improvements can have a big cascading impact. So, and of course, since then, with latest node and everything, Meteor has gotten much faster as well.
So next story, right?
Yes.
This is a big one.
So, yeah, it has been kind of hinted at, discussed a bit, but now we have an official announcement. Galaxy is supporting now Node.js and Python, or the hosting is available. It's in a public beta, and as you can see, we can now choose the types of there. So this kind of moves it forward to what we were kind of discussing, and I'll start going in the forum thread there as well. You can have your Meteor application, you can have your Node.js application for landing pages, or specifically for landing pages, so it could be your Next or whatever. And then you can have some machine learning in the Python deployment, or whatever the heck you use Python for. So, or Python, potentially another one could be again for a landing page as well. So that's coming up, and we'll be tracking this as things come in to see how things evolve. And I think this will also put in a bit more pressure to kind of start creating middlewares so that we can access things like accounts in other frameworks as well, especially for the landing pages, so we can have nice accounts management also outside of Meteor itself as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to trying to build, my my OpenCV applications, or my machine learning computer vision applications that I do in Python, right? And then building my Meteor application as the front end interface to it, all in the same in the same hosted environment. So it'll be kind of cool to see how that works out and whether or not it can work well. I'm assuming that being able to go across these different runtime boundaries within the same VPN, for instance, might be, or VPC, right, might be possible. I want to talk to the team a little more and find out more about it, but I'm sure they're going to reach out at some point, and we'll be sharing this in a little more depth. I noticed that Gabs had said that this is sort of a little bit of a soft launch, so that it's not really like a pure full global announcement, but this is really a podcast to the Meteor community. So for the most part, I think this is a way of letting people in the community know without necessarily worrying about the larger place out in the world. For God's sakes, we only have 329 subscribers, right? We don't get a huge amount of traffic today. So, if we had those numbers up, maybe we might be a little more concerned about letting people know about this right now. But I think right now, this is a great moment. Something I've been looking forward to. I mentioned that further in this post. If you want to, you can go take a look and read about it yourself and see the comments that people are making, and then add your own to it. It'll be a great way to take that forward. And let's see, there's some comments people are writing here. Oh, hang on a second. Oh, I got a little shout out from Kelly. Hey, Kelly, how are you? Haven't seen him in a bit. I'm glad he's back here. Oh, what we have? Oh, we have also from Kelly, we need an in-person Impact conference. I believe we do, but I think it's still a little early for that. So we'll take what we can get.
I already have some of the locations scouted out, but again, it's a bit too early, and we need first to have a big success on the online one. So please do, when the time comes, sign up and make sure it's a success. So that said, the last story for today, we started with security. We will end with security. And that is, of course, as Meteor is old, if you look into the accounts password package, there is, you'll notice that in the past, there was a different hashing algorithm for passwords, and until we got bcrypt. And now bcrypt is showing its age, and the recommendation came that we should replace bcrypt with Argon 2. And that is what started happening. It's going to happen. We pretty much have already a working fork where you can get it working, but the last thing that's gonna is discussed and I'll be looking forward to figure out how to do best is how to roll this out so that it is as non-destructive as possible, especially since this is going to affect anybody who is using accounts password, which is one of the, I would say, the key packages in the ecosystem. So keep an eye out on this because this is going to change things for many people. Hopefully, it will be just you just changing a flag and then the automatic conversion happens. And it should be hopefully as easy as that.
Bcrypt is used today to salt and encrypt the passwords in the accounts packages, doesn't it?
Yes, that's correct. And Argon 2 is the replacement. There also have been recently some issue with the package itself. So
I know that I remember having a discussion with Küster about this a while back, that he brought it up as something that we should look at. And I remember going and perusing the repositories and so on. It's one of those situations where the thing that people say is that the velocity of change in the Meteor core is not as high as it is with some other projects, and therefore perhaps it's a dead project. And we say no, it's just sure. And I brought the same thing up with bcrypt because I saw that one of the maintainers had also made some comment like that. It's like, listen, we're still on this, we're still working on it. It's just, it works. But the thing is, I don't even want to litigate that really, because I think if you're going to make the change, it's super important that we go with something that we feel comfortable with, that it's going to continue on. The concern I have is the Argon 2 algorithm, does it work exactly the same as bcrypt, so that when I go to retrieve the information on my originally bcrypted passwords, in my accounts, that if now Argon 2 is there as that interface for encrypting, am I going to have problems?
Yes. So how this, could say, transition is going to work? Argon 2 is a stronger hash. It's more secure. That's why we're moving towards it, because computers in the last 10 years have gotten faster, and techniques to kind of crack passwords have also improved significantly. So how this is going to work is there's going to be a transition period where you have both Argon 2 and bcrypt in the package. And when the user signs in, it will look in the database, okay, which one of these it's using. If it's using bcrypt, it's going to check and log you in as usual. But at the same time, in this transition period, what's going to do is, if you log in with bcrypt password, it's going to then take your password and rehash it and save it in Argon 2. So that way you will migrate, and hopefully eventually over in the future, it's going to be, everybody's going to migrate. Of course, then the issue is, with customers or users that don't visit your site during this transition
Yeah.
period, because maybe for years, then they will have to kind of go through once this transition period is over, they will have to go through the reset password procedure. Which at that point, if it takes them years to log into your account, they've probably forgotten your password as well, unless they are using KeePass or some other storage like that.
I don't know how that's going to all play out, but yeah, I think that is one of the things that you have to think about, which is there's some people that are still running on 1.4 that are very happy with how that's going, and then eventually they're going to say, you know what, for whatever reason, we need to add a new feature. We haven't needed this before, or maybe we're selling our business and we need to get the software up to date because the customer wants to make sure that it's going to still be serviceable. And then they find out that, I missed that window. There still needs to be some way for them to do the migration. Maybe they do like an intermediate, like they go from like 3.1 to 3.5, right? Or I'm sorry, 1.4 to 2, and then 2 to 3, and then 3 to 3.5, which is the transition version, and then they finally get to like version 5 or something.
Yes,
right?
that's how you should kind of do it. Step by step. If you today go from Meteor 1 to Meteor 3, I don't think that's a good approach, and you're going to break more things than you are going to fix, though probably less than in other software. But again, the breaking or the major version update is there for a reason. One of this to say, hey, this is something you really need to pay attention to, because there are changes that are breaking existing behavior.
Well, that was a lot of news. And what I would like to do is, I just took the thing off. Let me bring it back up again, because I do these things. Whatever. Guys, listen. If you haven't done so before, you heard me just now. 329. We're so close to 330, but I really want to get to 350. Honestly, what I really need is 500. But every single one of new subscribers that joins in here gets us closer and closer to that. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already. Let's get those numbers up, and we'll keep on making these episodes for you. And with that, I think we're going to go into our feature topic, right? And our
understanding Meteor.
No, understanding Meteor section is that's going to be with we have Küster sent us a video, and so we have that as the understanding Meteor section. It is another one of his advanced reactive data structures. Ooh. So he's covering trees this week. And anyway, what we're doing though is we're going back to what we started with here, which is the big lie that Next.js talks about. It's like, why, here's why Next.js is holding you back, is really what we're talking about. And this goes back to an article that you found, that you read, right? Which was titled, what was the title? It's a very provocative title.
Yeah, you don't need Next.js.
Right. So, there's a TLDR part of it here that's kind of highlighted. You want to read these items here, so back to them, or I could read it back to them, just so that the sense of like what was going on behind the fellow or the person that was writing this article,
Yeah. So the issue they got is that they received unexpected $2,000 bill from Vercel due to high API usage from a single user. Testing API has become a nightmare for them, because they had a lot of server actions mixed with API routes. Build times got slow, so it felt like watching paint dry, something that is, I would say a common critique for any framework. If you have big project, Meteor definitely has the same critique. And local devs was brutal every time change triggered a full SSR reload. So that's kind of the complaints they kind of led them to what they did in this article later on.
So early on, right? I mean, there are a couple of reasons I think that people left Meteor and went on to Next, and I think part of that just happened to be like the free, the free hosting that they offered for a while when they were, what were they before? Yeah, were they Next before they were Vercel?
Oh
Trying to remember
man,
what the original company's name was. I'll
you're
look it up
trying
while
to
we talk.
dead name them.
That name. Oh my gosh, I'm not trying to dead name them. I'm just trying to get to the historic context of things. There are facts that exist along a timeline. But in any case, they came
Site
along.
found it. Site
What
was
was it?
their original one.
Zeit?
Zeit.
Oh, Zeit.
Yeah.
Zeit. That's
With
exactly it. Zeit.
Yeah.
Right. So Zeit came along after MDG had like taken away the free hosting service, and we all popped on there. I did. I'm sure you did also. And
Mm-mm.
we had folks that actually built little tools that allowed you to do like I think there was like Meteor Up or something like that, right? That got it that allowed you to like run your build and then have it automatically like get posted into a Zeit account. And that was really kind of interesting, and people went over there, and I remember a lot of people saying, oh, it's just fun, it's lightweight, it's easy to build on, and so on. But as you pointed out, anytime you get to some relatively complex build times are going to suffer. And it's a criticism that was used to move people away from platforms like Meteor onto Zeit and then Vercel. And Next became like the sexy new girl on the block, excuse me for using a gender. And everybody wanted to be there, dance with it, right? Do whatever. And now what we've seen over the last year or so are complaints. There was another article, which I don't have here, that cited like runaway Vercel costs.
Yep.
I'm sorry. Give me 1 second here. I've got to shut this off. Computer, lower volume to 0. I apologize. I keep forgetting that this is in the room. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Frickin' Alexa is a menace sometimes. So anyway, it's interesting to see this. We've heard about runaway costs on AWS. I haven't seen a lot of articles on runaway costs on like Google Cloud Services or Azure, but AWS has gotten those complaints, and I've seen a few of them now on Vercel. I don't know how they get resolved. I haven't followed up, so maybe they get resolved well. Maybe people are, still face a lot of pain. But the fact that people are sitting down and taking the time to write about it means that it's an unpleasant situation, something that they don't want to get into. I think one of the other things that comes up to me is the fact that, people are starting to realize that that Next is great for certain things. And you've seen the Next team like contort themselves to trying to make it, Next work for as many situations as possible. When the rendering hasn't been good, they're like, oh, let's move to server-side rendering. It's going to solve our problems. And now we've got server components and so on, right? So I know I hijacked your story a little bit. Let me pull back right now from my talking because I got my little rant in, but you can go on from here. So tell them a little bit about, what the article is about, and and what's the good and the bad and the ugly that's been discovered by those folks.
Yes. So the big takeaway is that they had like you have in Meteor usually at the beginning, especially you have your public facing landing pages and then your dashboards and all the other applications together. And they first split it into two Next.js application, but eventually they came and or what they did was they took and rebuild their dashboard without Next.js with a just very dedicated, you could say, stack. If I remember correctly, they used 10 stack router and a few other things. And the big takeaway there is that they actually still use Next.js for their landing pages, but for their dashboard, which has a lot of data, a lot of things are happening, they've moved away from that to a more dedicated, again, or you could say a set of technologies more suited for that given problem, and it solved their problem. Still quite a lot of people surprisingly could say still surprised that if you use the right technology for your job, it will make your job easier and it will solve a lot of your problems. That's the same thing. But at the same time, if I look at it, Next.js with all of these things is going through what Meteor went through as well. And because Meteor had such an amazing, and I think for me to this day still has such an amazing tool or build, so it was very easy to get started, and people wanted to use it for everything, which of course it was not suited to do everything. Right. Meteor is for real-time or close to real-time applications that and could say for dashboards and all those things, so where you have time to actually load a bit more so that you can then have much more fluid experience. It's not meant to be for example, static website. Yes, you can make that happen. I actually had a stream where I did do that, where I pretty much removed everything from Meteor and just left it with Node and Express and served a static page to Express. But that is not what it's really meant to do. What it excels at. So again, choose if you choose the correct technology, then you will get the results that you want. Though I would put a caveat there, especially in the beginnings. The right technology might be technology because that's where you will be the most productive at. So when I'm could say when building Literal Universe, is it the best technology or fit with Meteor? I would say no. It's just the technology I know the most and I utilize the most. So I'm faster at building in that. But in the future, I know I will have to split what I would call the reader and the writer part of the universe, and the reader will have to be optimized to be more static and deliver quickly and fast things.
Yeah.
Well, writer is where all the magic of creativity will be happening. So there I'll keep Meteor because that's what it will be better suited for to do. So that's kind of the gist of the story, and this kind of gets to, as you said, Alim, the Next.js team trying to make it work for everything, which as we've seen with Meteor, and that's why I would say a lot of people left Meteor as well, because it could not support their what they've imagined it could, or it was supposed to support what they wanted to do. And I would say the biggest issue that I have with that is, of course, now everybody's on the Next.js hype train. So in a way, it's a bit edgy to kind of hate on that as well. But the biggest issue and impact is that React is also changing specifically according to what Next.js needs. So it has impact on the rest of the ecosystem as well. So that's
this is something that we brought up with I think it was Awesome's YouTube video last week. What's actually happened with the JS frameworks, where he goes over the survey, but he also mentions this sort of lock-in that you're getting with Vercel. So a lot of great people at Vercel, they've done a lot of great work over the years. Next.js is a terrific platform. And, if you remember, there was a time where we were building, when web functions first came out, right? We were trying to build. People did. They built the entire applications as web functions. What does Amazon call those again?
Ooh.
I'm trying to remember what it's like. I don't even use them very much, but everybody was using them for a while. And actually, Kelly might know off the top of his head. Let's see. Oh, everybody's talking. They're all talking about the forums being down right now.
Yeah,
So
I have a quick, not just like quick update, but they are, if you look on the status page, they are actually doing a upgrade to the forums. So
yeah,
this might be one of the side effects. So just give them a bit more time to finish that, and which
yeah,
means that everybody can come here and hang out here. So,
exactly. Excuse me.
but yeah,
Not edge functions, no Lambda functions. So like
Lambda.
Lambda was the thing. Everybody was doing, and we all like built, we're taking this big honking, as one of my one of my old managers used to call it, big honking apps, right? That's got everything in it, and sticking it into a Lambda function and then running them there, because you got these, I think it was 1 million um, invocations, right, for free or something like that on the free tier, and people were using those left and right. And so I think something like Next working with Lambda makes a lot more sense than Meteor, and that's great. It works out well because Lambda is really meant for stateless environments and so on, and Meteor is really meant for stateful, applications.
Yeah,
I think that when we start talking about like where Next works well, and it works really well there, but it doesn't play in the same field as when you need stateful connections to maintain consistent user experience. I don't think that that's where you want to go. And so the idea that you could build everything with Next is the same fiction that I think people have in their minds with almost any framework that they adopt. They just get a blind spot, and they want it to work for every situation altogether. Because I guess the context switching from one platform to another is difficult, and it's challenging. So you want to make life as easy as possible. I get it, but I don't think that that's how it works. And I think right now, what we're seeing here with these articles, with these responses, is that. And hang on a second, I shouldn't really just kind of just emphasize this silly dog here. One of the things that, and let me get back to over here because we're having a conversation about this, right? So I'm like,
yeah,
me as a producer sucks. You guys could say it out loud. I am not a good producer in terms of getting the screens up and so on. Jan's better. Fine. We're not competing, but it's okay. All right. Just stick with it. We're going to get to the point we're trying to get to here. But I think the thing is that the big lie, as I could see it, and I didn't see the Next team or the Vercel team trying to say, hey, we're not good for these situations. I think they ran on that hype also. But the thing is, it's a lie. It doesn't work, right? There are other things that work better. If you're going to do real time, go on Meteor, go on something like that. Whether it's Feathers, Meteor, Sails. I don't know what else is out there that's good, but I think Meteor is the way you go with some of these more app-like experiences than Next.js. Next is great for what it does, but it's not great for everything. That's a thesis right there.
yeah. I want to pick up a few points here. One of them is that, as I mentioned before, the impact on React itself, which we have seen to have been, with React 19. And
Thanks.
we
I'm a Gen X, man. I'm a Gen X. I'm not a boomer. Dude.
It's a general term, Alim. But back to my point. So we've seen this with React 19 that they broke the back then was like loading and stuff that was really focused, or that was really used by web apps, and they were kind of like in their response, they were like surprised that there are still people using React in like single page web application. At least that was my takeaway from that. And so that's I think is the big issue, and not sure if there needs to be rectification or if I need to go back to Blaze or maybe try Solid. But speaking of Solid has fixes some performance issue that I have with React and other things, but it has kind of taken the follow the leader approach in, at least that's how it looks at me, at kind of looking from the outside, where they do similar things that React and Next.js, they have their solid start. And like looking at that, I feel like you're just trying to copy React and Next.js like wholesome, and just kind of give it your spin, and yeah, maybe be a bit specific and better in specific areas, but you're kind of following the same patterns that I have issues with. So big part of me is kind of like maybe doing a bit of like a regretting that was going to be almost 10 years that no, 9 years now that I switched from Blaze to React, and I'm thinking, okay, maybe Blaze, maybe Meteor having be connected to a specific front end was, I would say, much better idea than it was given credit for, because the change to allow React and all the other front ends came kind of later on, or it came after demand from the users. So that is something that probably now there is no way back, but it might be something that we might have to figure out better, because I'm increasingly running into more problems, especially as React changes, than fixing solutions. So and of course, but when you split out, to support all the other front ends, then you don't really take advantages of either any of them. So that's something that we need to also discuss between, or like inside of Meteor as well. What do we want to kind of do in this area? How do you want to address this situation?
It's an interesting thing, the issue of coupling, right? And what you're going to have, whether or not you want to have something tightly coupled that really is as responsive as it can be, versus having some coupled interface where you're going to have everything there and maybe you don't get the same level of performance. These are trade-offs. Trade-offs are a thing that engineers face all the time, businesses face all the time. And it's a good question as to whether or not it makes more sense to stick with one or be open to the others. I think there was a decision made many, many years ago, which is what we deal with right now, that said, listen, we don't want to be so tightly coupled that we lose out the opportunity for advances in front ends. I actually think that was a good decision, because if you don't, then you commit to maintaining, growing, and having all the modern ideas that you can get into your current front end. And I don't know that there is enough bodies and minds around in the Meteor community to support that. So I don't know. What do you guys think, those of you in the chat? Do you have a thought about that? See, Harry's over there too. Hey, I forgot about saying hi over there.
Yeah. Or any hot takes on Next or React?
Yeah,
I think we'll be returning to this. Yeah.
But I think I don't want this to go on forever, because we do have our Understanding Meteor section next. And let me just bring up what we need to do for Understanding Meteor. So we got the ticker that we've got to run, and then we got a little video that we've got to show. So let me get those things in place here and run them now. So we'll end in 16 seconds. What the heck does that mean? So, oh. Well, the dispatches -60 code to get your discount. So I didn't do it fast enough. I apologize about that. It's I'm hitting the limits of my talent, and there is the streamer down below that tells you how to do this. Okay, and with that, let's move on now to the next thing, which is Küster couldn't be with us today. He had some dental work. It's hard for him to talk right now with the things that happened in his mouth. So that sounded weird. He had dental work. Just leave it at that. Just go with that. But in the meantime, what he did was he prepared another in his series of reactive data structures, and this is an advanced data structure. This one covers the implementation of trees, and he's done so as a reactive component. And so I'm going to share that now over here. Okay, and what I would like you guys to do is give me some feedback into whether or not this is audible, okay, at your end. So let me
welcome to another episode of MeteorJS.
Were you able to hear it?
Yes.
Okay, then I'm gonna start it again and play it, and I'll shut up.
Welcome to another episode of MeteorJS reactive data structures. Today we are looking at reactive trees, which is for now the most complex data structure we have covered yet, and it might get a little bit mind-bending, so prepare yourself with some hot drink or something and get relaxed. We will get into some more complex things here, but let me first introduce you to trees. If you haven't seen these before, they're basically some kind of recursive data structures where a node has 0, 1 or more children, and these children can have 0, 1 or more children. Of course, each of these nodes have a value, and then these nodes can also be called leaves when they have no children, because then they're the most outer parts of them. And we're traversing the tree from the root node usually, but there are also more sophisticated trees, which I'm not going into here because this is very specific to each of these trees. They're solving specific problems. And one of the most well-known trees everybody uses every day is some kind of these file system structures or directory structures. And I prepared this time the already working for you in the beginning, so you can see how it will behave. We will use Meteor Blaze for that because I'm very comfortable with Blaze and I know the internals and how this works, and I'm sure you can easily implement this with React or Vue once you understood how it works. Let me first show you. So the tree always starts with this empty root node, and I'm adding basically the first child to this root node, which is, for me, it's just the number 1, and then I'm adding a second child in number 2. So I'm using numbers because it's easily to understand. Then number 1 also should receive a child, and that's now number 4. Number 4 is now child of number 1, and number 5 also, oops, sorry, I was too fast. Number 5 is also child of number 1. And now you already seen the delete function, so I can also delete children here. So I removed number 5 from number 1. So 1 is obviously parent of number 5, or was the parent. And these are all nodes. Yes, number 1 is only the value of this node, and I can add a new node to the node, or I can remove a node from that node. And then I can give number 5 to number 2, and so on. And then I can basically, so I could theoretically do, as you see, arbitrary depth of nesting. I can just remove them where I need to. And this is achieved all reactively by our reactive tree. And in order to go deeper into the reactive tree, let me first remove all the code and start from scratch so you actually understand what's going on. So first of all, as always, we need to import the tracker, because the tracker is the tool of Meteor core that makes this whole reactivity magic. And you have to import the tracker in order to make it work. Basically, you have to export 2 classes for the tree, and I will explain you in a minute why, but first let's create a reactive tree. That's the keeper to the outside of this data structure, but we also want to have a class for the nodes. And this is where this whole recursive structure comes into play, because usually the recursion goes between the nodes. The nodes will have children, which are nodes. And the tree is only referring to the first node and provides us some more access. So first of all, give the tree a constructor. And when creating a new tree, there's always a root node. I use the underscore for the root node because you will see in a minute why that is. This is a new node, and it will have a null value. So apparently a node needs to keep a value. So in the constructor, let's call it item, and then this.item equals to the item. So now we have a root node in the tree that holds the null value. This is always created in the beginning. Okay, but we also need our tracker dependencies. So this.dep is new tracker.dependency. You know this from the previous tutorials. If you haven't seen them before, then you might want to check them out. And the root nodes, the nodes themselves also get a dependency to inform tracker about changes, for example, when new nodes have been added or have been removed. There is a missing equal sign. And now we want to access this root node reactively from the outside. So therefore, we're writing a function called root. And then we first need to inform the tracker. So if tracker is active, if we are in the current active computation, then we have to tell tracker, hey, we're depending on some reactive variable, please rerun your computation. And then we can return this dot root, the root node. Okay, so that's the one thing. That's for accessing the root node. But now there's the question, how do we achieve this whole add and remove and things? And here it's a little bit more complicated. And before we do that, let's complete the constructor, because every root node, every node, as I told you, also has the ability to keep children. And for that, we just use a plain array. And now we need functions to add new nodes or move nodes. And we will not pass the node itself as an item, but just the item, the value. And then we can say this.children.push, and then we're creating the new node inside the node. So from the outside, there is no need to create new nodes. This is all done internally. We're just passing, and we're just using the API of these classes, the add and the remove. And now it gets a little bit more tricky, because now we cannot search for any nodes, because if we want to remove a node, we have to search it in the children, but we cannot compare it by item, because then we would have to use unique values, and that would not fit very well to many users. So instead, we use the nodes, because we can get node as objects, and then we can search for these objects in the to get the index. And this is pretty easy, just by using this children.index of the node. This is searching for the object reference, returns us the index within the array. And we can use if the index is greater -1, very important, because if it's -1, we haven't found anything. Then we're telling the array to splice at the index. If the index would be -1, then it would still splice. That's the problem of the splice function, which is why we have to guard it with the index greater -1. And now this is already the basic functionality, but it's missing the reactivity here. So first of all, we need to inform tracker we did some changes. So when add was called, we say this.dep.changed, informing tracker data has changed. And in order to chain events, I don't know if we will need that, but it's might come in handy. We can return this node so we can chain, but maybe we don't need it at all. Let's see later on. And of course, if we removed something, we also need to inform the tracker that something has changed. Don't put it outside here. It needs to be inside here. Otherwise, it would even inform the tracker of changes if there wasn't anything removed at all. So then I'm returning this again, simply to basically have the ability, even if I don't need it. Okay, and now there is something we still need here in order to get the children reactively. So because I will show you later in the template, you can't just use the children and then iterate each children, and if something changes in these children, then it's just magically done. You also need, as the same as I did with the root node, you also need to get the children and inform the tracker. So what you need is some function like all children, something that is a little bit similar, or iterate each children, something like this. And then you need to inform if tracker is active, then that depend, and then you can return this dot children. And it sounds crazy, but this is already all you need for this. The rest is just supplementary in the templates. There's one more method we'll show you in a minute how it's working. This is what we need when we want to add or remove nodes. We need to search, we need to traverse the tree. There is one more function. I'm just writing it here. That's the find function that we need to recursively go through the tree and find a node by ID. But for now, this is the fundamental. This is the fundamental structure, and I can show you in a minute. Let me reload. It's not reloading at all. I think it's apparently missing something. Let me see. Let me quickly look what's going on here. And reactive tree is not a constructor. Oh, that's interesting. Why is that? Let me reload. Oh, there it is. Okay, so this is only the root node. And now let's have a look into the template. So first, let's go into the HTML level of the template, and then I explain you what's going on here. First of all, our entry point is the body. There is this tree template, which is basically this one here. And as you can see, this is only an empty input and the plus minus buttons. And these are rendered in the node template. So this is also the recursive template structure. We only use the root node we will get from the tree and render a node. I could even leave it out and put the helper into the body. So this is just one layer of complexity that I may not even need. But if I look into the main file, you will see that we actually need it. And in the node template, there is basically everything we need to recursively render. We have two containers, the most outer container. We have one inner container rendering the item and these inputs to adding a new one, and then iterate all children, calling the template itself with some logic. And now let's open the main function and see how this is done. So we use, in order to share between the tree and the node template, we use a shared context here. It's the tree, and this is for now null. And once the tree template, so this one here, once this is created, we want to instantiate the new tree, automatically getting our root node, having this available via a helper. And we're just returning the root. So this is what's passed here into the node template. And now in the node template, again, we have the node already available. So let me open the React tree as well so you can see it also. Oh, let me open it next to this one. So basically, this node here is available, and that's because we return the root node and pass it to the node template. We can access node item, which is this. That's actually the data the node is holding. And then these inputs. And these inputs are part of the node template. These one. And adding an item is basically reading things from the input, then looking up the node by ID. And now you might wonder, why is there an ID? How you didn't do anything with ID? This is something we have to implement. That's the missing piece here. To find elements, we need to have some IDs, because we can't just pass all the reference around here in these events. We will not have the node immediately available, but we can use HTML data attributes, data minus ID, and then we have a unique ID for each node, and then we can search through the tree, and we can also use the same for the parent of the nodes. So instead of wiring nodes with parents, we can just use it on the template level. And in order to do that, Meteor provides a very nice random package, and it's always there. It's part of the core. You can import it random, and then basically every node simply gets a random ID. I'm using 6 digits. That's small enough to be performant and large enough to fit most of the tree sizes. Should be fine. And these have to be used to find the nodes in the tree. And now this is where this find function comes into play. We want to find a node by ID, and we are starting with the root node. Then we can check, okay, if the current ID is the same as the ID, then we can return the current. And if it's not, then we need to iterate the children. And we iterate the children, check for each child if that's the child's ID is the same as the search ID. And in order to achieve that, we need to check for found. And then that's where the recursion comes into play. We're calling the find function with the same ID, but with a different current target. And that target is now the current child in the children's list. If it's found, we return the found child. This enables us to recursively search through the tree. Of course, this is very imperformant if the tree is very big and complex, but for this tutorial, it's totally fine. There are much different implementations for different kind of trees that are different in their performance implications. So if you really need to implement tree data structures, this is all on you to read up how it's working, how different trees behave differently, what are performance implications, what are the use cases. The last thing I want to show you here is when this element is found by ID, we can basically add a value to this node, to parent node, and that's the feature of doing this. Oh, there's something missing. Parent is undefined. Obviously, I have missed something. Give me a second, please. Let me reload the page and see. Now it was just missing because I didn't implement the find function yet. Now it's implemented and we can add items. And the remove function is similar to that, just with the difference that we have to reference 2 IDs. We have to reference the ID of the current node and the ID of the parent, because we remove the node from the parent. So they need to be in context of both. And that is, as you can see here in the template, when the template is recursively calling itself for a child, we're simply passing the current node n as parent to the children. And that's already enough to do this linking without hardwiring it on the JS side. So I hope this helps you to implement your trees for whatever reason you do. I don't know, maybe you want to implement a virtual folder structure, something like this, and then basically start from there. Use your own frameworks, use your own data, and Let me know what comes out of this. Let me know if it helps you. I hope this is a useful tutorial to any of you. I hope you can make it work in your other languages like React or Vue. And let me know if something doesn't work out. If you enjoyed it and if it was helpful, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel to not miss out on our upcoming tutorials and, of course, our upcoming streams of This Week in MeteorJS. My name is Jan Küster, and I wish you a happy coding time.
All right. Okay, let us do that. Oh my gosh, look at me again there. Don't look at me, please. I'm hideous. Ah. All right. So this was a test of everybody's eyesight. Okay. This was a little bit of an experiment to see just how many of you have exceptional vision. I want to just say away that Jan, when he posted this earlier this morning, well, it was morning for me, but it was afternoon for him. To his credit, he noticed that it was hard to view the fonts, and he's made a commitment over the weekend that he's going to be recording it and then re-releasing it as a standalone video. You could see it, and it will be a lot more visible, the implementation that he does the next time. So I hope you enjoyed the idea, at least, of what he's teaching and seeing how you can actually, or getting some sense that you can actually make a reactive tree structure. It'll be interesting to see what kind of trees people build with it or use it for. I'm kind of interested to see if, it can actually be used to build like a reactive B tree, which are typically like the engines behind databases, right? So, or database queries. So it'll be interesting to see what people do with this and how far they take the work that he has done. So look for that episode or that standalone sometime this weekend. And as soon as we can get it up there, we will get it out to you. Okay, now I keep on putting Kelly's stuff up there because good stuff seems like a good thing to have on the screen from time to time. So that was the Understanding Meteor section. Let me get that ticker off because I think at this point, people get the idea of what they should do, right? Any reminders that we want to do? I think we've really kind of overstayed our welcome, so to speak. It's all about 11 o'clock in New York right now. So we've been on for about an hour and a half.
Yeah, I have a quick reminder for on Monday. I will be continuing my OAuth build with my ID, which will primarily focus on upgrading old packages or like going from HTTP to fetch and all the other upgrades that come from Meteor 2 to Meteor 3 and other things through the past, because the original package I used as a template is outdated. So that will be kind of the gist or gist of the episode.
All right. Sounds good. And I just have one last thing to share. I'm going to do that in a second here. And that is, I just want to remind everybody, hey, if you can, show up next week. We're going to have a really nice show for you guys. It's going to be our awards show. You're going to see us dressed pretty nicely here. It's going to be like the Oscars, but for Meteor community ambassadors. And it should be a lot of fun. We'll have the news as we always do, but the main part of it, the main event, will be honoring those people that we brought up to you. So not a great thumbnail, I know. We don't have a graphic designer, and that should be Küster in the middle there, but we don't have a photo of him. So, that's what we got. Anyway, you could sit down, write about this, do an essay, write an article how we're missing somebody in the middle. Or maybe it's poetic, right? Maybe it's the You could inject yourself in the middle there as like the guest of honor, so to speak. However you want to see this, you could use it. But in any case, I just want to say to all of you, thank you for coming again, joining us this week. And with that, if there's nothing else to add, I'm going to say have a great weekend. We'll see you again next week.
Great weekend, everybody.
Okay.